Complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 1, Raja Yoga, Chapter 1, Introduction. All our knowledge is based upon experience, what we call inferential knowledge, in which we go from the less to the more general, or from the general to the particular, has experience as its basis. In what are called the exact science, people easily find the truth because it appeals to the particular experiences of every human being. The scientist does not tell you to believe in anything, but he has certain results which come from his own experiences, and reasoning on them, when he asks us to believe in his conclusions, he appeals to some universal experience of humanity. In every exact science, there is a basis which is common to all humanity, so that we can at once see the truth or the fallacy of the conclusions drawn therefrom. Now the question is, has religion any such basis or not? I shall have to answer the question both in affirmative and in the negative. Religion, as it is generally thought all over the world, is said to be based upon faith and belief, and in most cases consists only of different set of theories, and that is the reason why we find all religions quarreling with one another. These theories again are based upon belief. One man says there is a great being sitting above the clouds and governing the whole universe, and he asks me to believe that solely on the authority of his assertion. In the same way, I may have my own ideas, which I am asking others to believe, and if they ask a reason, I cannot give them any. This is why religion and metaphysical philosophy have a bad name nowadays. Every educated man seems to say, "Oh, these religions are only bundles of theories," without any standard to judge them by, each man preaching his own pet ideas. Nevertheless, there is a basis of universal belief in religion, governing all the different theories and all the varying ideas of different sects in different countries. Going to their basis, we find that they also are based upon universal experiences. In the first place, if you analyze all the various religions of the world, you will find that these are divided into two classes: those with a book and those without a book. Those with a book are the strongest and have the largest number of followers. Those without books have mostly died out, and the few new ones have very small following. Yet in all of them we find one consensus of opinion, that the truths they teach are the result of the experiences of particular persons. The Christians ask you to believe in his religion, to believe in Christ, and to believe in him as the incarnation of God, to believe in a God, in a soul, and in better state of that soul. And if I ask him for reason, he says he believes in them. But if you go to the foundation head of Christianity, you will find that it is based upon experience. Christ said he saw God. The disciples said they felt God, and so forth. Similarly, in Buddhism, it is Buddha's experience. He experienced certain truths, saw them, came in contact with them, and preached them to the world. So with the Hindus, in their books, the writers, who are called rishis or sages, declare they experience certain truths, and these they preach. Thus it is clear that all the religions of the world have been built upon that one universal and adamantine foundation of all our knowledge, direct experience. The teachers all saw God. They all saw their own souls. They saw their future. They saw their eternity. And what they saw, they preached. Only there is this difference, that by most of these religions, especially in modern times, a peculiar claim is made, namely that these experiences are impossible at the present day. They were only possible with a few men, who were the first founders of the religions that subsequently bore their names. At the present time, these experiences have become absolute, and therefore we have now to take religion on belief. This I entirely deny. If there has been one experience in this world in any particular branch of knowledge, it absolutely follows that the experience has been possible millions of times before and will be repeated eternally. Uniformity is the rigorous law of nature. What once happened can always happen. The teachers of the science of yoga therefore declare that religion is not only based upon the experience of ancient times, but that no man can be religious until he has the same perception himself. Yoga is a science which teaches us how to get these perceptions. It is not much use to talk about religion until one has felt it. Why is there so much disturbance, so much fighting and quarreling in the name of God? There has been more bloodshed in the name of God than for any other cause, because people never went to the fountainhead. They were content only to give a mental assent to the customs of their forefathers and wanted others to do the same. What right has a man to say he has a soul if he does not feel it, or that there is a God if he does not see him? If there is a God, we must see him. If there is a soul, we must perceive it. Otherwise, it is better not to believe. It is better to be an outspoken atheist than a hypocrite. The modern idea, on the one hand, with the learned, is that religion and metaphysics and all search after a supreme being are futile. On the other hand, with the semi-educated, the idea seems to be that these things really have no basis. Their only value consists in the fact that they furnish strong motive powers for doing good to the world. If men believe in a God, they may become good and moral and so make good citizens. We cannot blame them for holding such ideas. Seeing that all the teachings these men get is simply to believe in an eternal rigmarole of words, without any substance behind them. They are asked to live upon words. Can they do it? If they could, I should not have the least regard for human nature. Man wants truth, wants to experience truth for himself. When he has grasped it, realized it, felt it within his heart of hearts, then alone declare the Vedas, would all doubts vanish, all darkness be shattered, and all crookedness be made straight. Ye children of immortality, even those who live in the highest sphere, the way is found. There is a way out of all this darkness, and that is by perceiving Him who is beyond all darkness. There is no other way. The science of Raja Yoga proposes to put before humanity a practical and scientifically worked out method of teaching this truth. In the first place, every science must have its own method of investigation. If you want to become an astronomer and sit down and cry, "Astronomy, astronomy," it will never come to you. The same with chemistry. A certain method must be followed. You must go to a laboratory, take different substances, mix them up, compound them, experiment with them, and out of that will come a knowledge of chemistry. If you want to be an astronomer, you must go to an observatory, take a telescope, study the stars and planets, and then you will become an astronomer. Each science must have its own methods. I could preach you thousands of sermons, but they would not make you religious until you practice the method. These are the truths of the sages of all countries, of all ages, of all men, pure and unselfish, who had no motive but to do good to the world. They all declare that they have found some truth higher than what the senses can bring to us, and they invite verification. They ask us to take up the method and practice honestly, and then, if we do not find this higher truth, we will have the right to say there is no truth in the claim. But before we have done that, we are not rational in denying the truth of their assertions. So we must work faithfully using the prescribed methods, and light will come. In acquiring knowledge, we must make use of generalizations, and generalization is based upon observation. We first observe facts, then generalize, and then draw conclusion or principles. The knowledge of the mind, of the internal nature of man, of thought, can never be had until we have first the power of observing the facts that are going on within. It is comparatively easy to observe facts in the external world, for many instruments have been invented for the purpose. But in the internal world, we have no instrument to help us. Yet we know we must observe in order to have a real science. Without a proper analysis, any science will be hopeless, mere theory. And that is why all psychologists have been quarreling among themselves since the beginning of time, except those few who found out the means of observation. The science of Raja Yoga, in the first place, proposes to give us such a means of observing the internal states. The instrument is the mind itself. The power of attention, when properly guided and directed towards the internal world, will analyze the mind and illumine facts for us. The powers of the mind are like rays of light dissipated. When they are concentrated, they illumine. This is our only means of knowledge. Everyone is using it, both in the external and the internal world, but for the psychologist, the same minute observation has to be directed to the internal world, which the scientific man directs to the external. And this requires a great deal of practice. From our childhood upwards, we have been taught only to pay attention to things external, but never to things internal. Hence, most of us have nearly lost the faculty of observing the internal mechanism. To turn the mind as it were inside, stop it from going outside, and then to concentrate all its powers and throw them upon the mind itself, in order that it may know its own nature, analyze it, is very hard work. Yet that is the only way to anything which will be scientific approach to the subject. What is the use of such knowledge? In the first place, knowledge itself is the highest reward of knowledge. And secondly, there is also utility in it. It will take away all our misery. When by analyzing his own mind, man comes face to face, as it were, with something which is never destroyed, something which is by its own nature eternally pure and perfect, he will no more be miserable, no more unhappy. All misery comes from fear, from unsatisfied desire. Man will find that he never dies, and then he will have no more fear of death. When he knows that he is perfect, he will have no more vain desires, and both these causes being absent, there will be no more misery. There will be perfect bliss, even while in this body. There is only one method by which to attain this knowledge, that which is called concentration. The chemist in his laboratory concentrates all his energies of his mind into one focus and throws them upon the materials he is analyzing, and so finds out their secrets. The astronomer concentrates all the energies of his mind and projects them through his telescope upon the skies, and the stars, the sun, and the moon give up their secrets to him. The more I can concentrate my thoughts on the matter on which I am talking to you, the more light I can throw upon you. You are listening to me, and the more you concentrate your thoughts, the more clearly you will grasp what I have to say. How has all the knowledge in the world been gained? But by the concentration of the powers of the mind. The world is ready to give up its secrets if you only know how to knock, how to give it the necessary blow. The strength and force of the blow come through concentration. There is no limit to the power of the human mind. The more concentrated it is, the more power is brought to bear on one point, that is a secret. It is easy to concentrate the mind on external things. The mind naturally goes outwards, but not so in the case of religion, or psychology, or metaphysics, where the subject and the object are one. The object is internal. The mind itself is the object, and it is necessary to study the mind itself. Mind studying mind. We know that there is the power of the mind called reflection. I am talking to you. At the same time, I am standing aside as it were a second person and knowing and hearing what I am talking. You work and think at the same time, while a portion of your mind stands by and sees what you are thinking. The power of the mind should be concentrated and turned back upon itself. And as the darkest places reveal the secrets before the penetrating rays of the sun, so will this concentrated mind penetrate its own innermost secrets. Thus will we come to the basis of belief, the real, genuine religion. We will pursue for ourselves whether we have souls, whether life is of 5 minutes or of eternity, whether there is a God in the universe or more. It all will be revealed to us. That is what Raja Yoga proposes to teach. The goal of all its teaching is how to concentrate the minds, then how to discover the innermost recess of our own minds, then how to generalize their contents and form our own conclusions from them. It therefore never asks the question what our religion is, whether we are deists or atheists, whether Christians, Jews or Buddhists. We are human beings. That is sufficient. Every human being has a right and the power to seek for religion. Every human being has a right to ask the reason why and to have his question answered by himself if he only takes the trouble. So far, then we have seen that in the study of this Raja Yoga, no faith or belief is necessary. Believe nothing until you find out for yourself. That is what it teaches us. Truth requires no prop to make it stand. Do you mean to say that the facts of our awakened state require any dreams or imaginings to prove them? Certainly not. This study of Raja Yoga takes a long time and constant practice. A part of this practice is physical, but in the main it is mental. As we proceed, we shall find how intimately the mind is connected with the body. If we believe that the mind is a finer part of the body, and that mind acts upon the body, then it stands to reason that the body must react upon the mind. If the body is sick, the mind becomes sick also. If the body is healthy, the mind remains healthy and strong. When one is angry, the mind becomes disturbed. Similarly, when the mind is disturbed, the body also becomes disturbed. With the majority of mankind, the mind is greatly under the control of the body, their mind being very little developed. The vast mass of humanity is very little removed from the animals. Not only so, but in many instances the power of control in them is little higher than that of the lower animals. We have very little command of our minds. Therefore, do bring that command about. To get that control over body and mind, we must take certain physical helps. When the body is sufficiently controlled, we can attempt the manipulation of the mind. By manipulating the mind, we shall be able to bring it under our control, make it work as we like, and compel it to concentrate its powers as we desire. According to the Raja Yogi, the external world is but the gross form of the internal or subtle. The finer is always the cause, the grosser the effect. So the external world is the effect, and the internal the cause. In the same way, external forces are simply the grosser parts, of which the internal forces are the finer. The man who has discovered and learned how to manipulate these internal forces will get the whole of nature under his control. The yogi proposes to himself no less a task than to master the whole universe, to control the whole of nature. He wants to arrive at a point where what we call nature's laws will have no influence over him, where he will be able to get beyond them all. He will be master of the whole of nature, internal and external. The progress and civilization of the human race simply mean controlling this nature. Different races take to different processes of controlling nature. Just as in the same society, some individuals want to control the external nature and others the internal. So, among races, some want to control the external nature and others the internal. Some say that by controlling internal nature we can control everything. Others that by controlling external nature we control everything. Carried to the extreme, both are right because in nature there is no such division as internal or external. These are fictitious limitations that never existed. The externalists and internalists are destined to meet at the same point, when both reach the extreme of their knowledge. Just as a physicist, when he pushes his knowledge to its limits, finds it melting away into metaphysics, so a metaphysician will find that what he calls mind and matter are but apparent distinctions, the reality being one. The end and aim of all science is to find the unity, the one out of which the manifold is being manufactured. The one existing as many. Raja Yoga proposes to start from the internal world, to study internal nature, and through that control the whole, that is both internal and external. It is a very old attempt. India has been its special stronghold, but it was also attempted by other nations. In Western countries, it was regarded as mysticism, and people who wanted to practice it were either burnt or killed as witches and sorcerers. In India, for various reasons, it fell into the hands of persons who destroyed 90% of the knowledge and tried to make a great secret of the remainder. In modern times, many so called teachers have arisen in the West worse than those of India, because the latter knew something while these modern exponents know nothing. Anything that is secret and mysterious in this system of yoga should be at once rejected. The best guide in life is strength. In religion, as in all other matters, discard everything that weakens you. Have nothing to do with it. Mystery mongering weakens the human brains. It has well-nigh destroyed yoga, one of the grandest of sciences. From the time it was discovered more than 4,000 years ago, yoga was perfectly delineated, formulated, and preached in India. It is a striking fact that the most modern the commentator, the greater the mistake he makes, while the more ancient the writer, the more rational he is. Most of the modern writers talk of all sorts of mystery. Thus, yoga fell into the hands of a few persons who made it a secret, instead of letting the full blaze of daylight and reason fall upon it. They did so that they might have the powers to themselves. In the first place, there is no mystery in what I teach. What little I know, I will tell you. So far as I can reason it out, I will do so. But as to what I do not know, I will simply tell you what the book says. It is wrong to believe blindly. You must exercise your own reason and judgment. You must practice and see whether these things happen or not. Just as you would take up any other science, exactly in the same manner you should take up this science for study. There is neither mystery nor danger in it, so far as it is true. It ought to be preached in the public streets, in broad daylight. Any attempt to mystify these things is productive of great danger. Before proceeding further, I will tell you a little of the Sankhya philosophy, upon which the whole of Raja Yoga is based. According to the Sankhya philosophy, the genesis of perception is as follows. The affections of external objects are carried by the outer instrument to the respective brain centers or organs. The organs carry the affections to the mind to the determinative faculty. From this, the Purusha, the soul, receives them when perception results. Next, he gives the order back, as it were, to the motor centers to do the needful. With the exception of the Purusha, all of these are material, but the mind is much finer matter than the external instruments. That material of which the mind is composed goes also to form the subtle matter called the tanmantras. These become gross and make the external matter, that is the psychology of the Sankhya, so that between the intellect and the grosser matter outside, there is only a difference in degree. The Purusha is the only thing which is immaterial. The mind is an instrument, as it were, in the hands of the soul, through which the soul catches external objects. The mind is constantly changing and vacillating and can, when perfected, either attach itself to several organs, to one or to none. For instance, if I hear the clock with great attention, I will not perhaps see anything although my eyes may be open, showing that the mind was not attached to the seeing organ, while it was to the hearing organ. But the perfected mind can be attached to all the organs simultaneously. If it has the reflexive power of looking back into its own depths, the reflexive power is what the yogi wants to attain. By concentrating the powers of the mind and turning them inwards, he seeks to know what is happening inside. There is in this no question of mere belief. It is the analysis arrived at by certain philosophers. Modern psychologists tell us that the eyes are not the organ of vision, but that the organ is in one of the nerve centers of the brain. And so, with all the senses, they also tell us that these centers are formed of the same material as the brain itself. The Sankhyas also tell us the same thing. The former is a statement on the physical side, and the later on the psychological side, yet both are the same. Our field of research lies beyond this. The yogi proposes to attain that fine state of perception in which he can perceive all the different mental states. There must be a mental perception of all of them. One can perceive how the sensation is traveling, how the mind is receiving it, how it is going to the determinative faculty, and how this gives it to the Purusha. As each science requires certain preparations and has its own methods, which must be followed before it could be understood, even so in Raja Yoga. Certain regulations as to food are necessary. We must use that food which brings us the purest mind. If you go into a Menagiri, you will find this demonstration at once. You see the elephants, huge animals, but calm and gentle. And if you go towards the cages of the lions and tigers, you will find them restless, showing how much difference has been made by food. All the forces that are working in this body have been produced out of food. You see that every day. If you begin to fast, first your body will get weak. The physical forces will suffer. Then after a few days, the mental forces will suffer also. First, memory will fail. Then comes a point when you are not able to think, much less to pursue any course of reasoning. We have therefore to take care what sort of food we eat at the beginning. And when we have got strength enough, when our practice is well advanced, we need not be so careful in this respect. While the plant is growing, it must be hedging round, lest it be injured. But when it becomes a tree, the hedges are taken away. It is strong enough to withstand all assaults. A yogi must avoid the two extremes of luxury and austerity. He must not fast, nor torture his flesh. He who does so, says the Gita, cannot be a yogi. He who fasts, he who keeps awake, he who sleeps much, he who works too much, he who does not work, none of this can be a yogi. Gita, chapter 6, 16. Here ends the volume 1 of Raja Yoga, chapter 1, introduction. Om Tat Sat. Om Sri Krishnarpanamastu.